Have you ever heard this saying? Thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny. In short, a person's thoughts ultimately determine their destiny. It sounds profound, but it's actually quite simple. A person's thoughts influence their way of life. By the time you realize this truth, it might be too late. This is one such story. My name is Mia, 54 years old. I am a working mother. I've been married to my husband, Tarek, for 30 years. Our 2 children are already independent, and we live our days freely as a couple. Honey, you'll be retiring soon, won't you? I said to him during dinner. Tarek, who is 3 years older than me, will be retiring in 3 years. Since graduating from college, Tarek has worked as a banker for about 35 years. Yes, retirement used to mean paying off the house loan with the retirement money to prepare for old age, right? That's right. It was standard to pay off the debt all at once with a lump sum. But it's not like that anymore. Oh, really? According to Tarek, nowadays, companies that pay retirement benefits of $200,000 or $300,000 are very few, and getting $20,000 or $30,000 is considered good. In addition, with the retirement crisis, more and more families want to keep as much cash on hand as possible. I listened with great interest to Tarek's banker-like talk. What should we do? We could pay off a good chunk to save on interest. We could manage the remaining loan by cutting back on living expenses. Fortunately, I can work as a contractor even after retiring. Having a financially savvy husband like him is truly reassuring. You are so dependable, Tarek, I said, pouring him a beer. One day, some unusual guests visited our home. Hey, Mia, long time no see. It was my older brother Alfred and his wife Kimberly. People I didn't want to see. I didn't say it out loud, but my face must have shown my displeasure. I wondered what they wanted, visiting in the middle of a weekday. Kimberly, right after arriving. Actually, we've built a new house. So, we came to get a housewarming gift, said cheerfully. A housewarming gift. It's incredibly rude to come and ask for a gift. Wouldn't you agree? But these people think it's perfectly normal, which is the problem. Ever since they got married, they've always been so greedy about money. When they got married, I was still a college student, and Alfred said to me, "You're over 20, so you're an adult. Whether you're earning or not, give us a wedding gift. College for a woman is a waste. I wish you'd use that tuition for our celebration." He said it without any shame. Our parents were completely fed up with him. I thought Alfred was the most money-hungry person, but Kimberly was on the same level. During summer vacations and Christmas, all they talked about was money. Mia, how much is your salary? How much is Tarek's bonus? What assets does your family have? How much pension does Trevor get? They are such trashy, rude people, so I've kept my interactions with them to a minimum. But to demand a housewarming gift. Huh? A new house? I heard that Alfred turned 60 this year and retired. I think Kimberly is working part-time. I hate to ask, but about the mortgage for the new house. Can you even get a loan? Just as I was about to ask, Alfred cut me off. Loan? We don't have one. I used my retirement money and her parents' inheritance to build it. What? Apparently, Alfred used his $80,000 retirement fund, their $140,000 savings, and Kimberly's parents' $250,000 inheritance to buy the house. We've always lived in rented places, and I wanted to try living in a house of our own at least once. A new house is really nice. Absolutely, absolutely. It's so much prettier and more accessible than this old place. We can live comfortably in our old age. But to gamble like that, I could never do something so reckless. But you still have 5 years until you get Social Security. Don't you think it would be better to have some savings for your later years? When I said that, Kimberly gave me a look of utter disdain. You really worry too much. We've got it all figured out. It worried me to see Alfred and Kimberly exchanging those creepy smiles. What are they planning? I found out a month later. Mia! Trevor collapsed. I got that call from Mom, Savannah, during my lunch break. Just a week ago, Dad, Trevor, had been fine when I talked to him on the phone. I told my boss the situation and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, Tarek was already there, comforting my distraught and slumped-over mom. "How's Dad?" When I asked, Tarek explained on Mom's behalf. Dad had collapsed in the bathroom and was brought to the hospital unconscious. The diagnosis was a subarachnoid hemorrhage. He had immediate surgery and was still being treated. I see. Did you contact Alfred and Kimberly? Yeah, I did, but... Tarek trailed off. What's wrong? Well, before they even asked about Dad's condition, they said they had to talk to a lawyer about the inheritance. They aren't coming to the hospital. What? How greedy can those idiots be? He is still alive. Yes, he's in critical condition, and there's a chance something could happen. But to be thinking about money while he's still alive. I was so appalled I couldn't speak. Mom, too, was half resigned. It's just pathetic. How can they be so foolish? As she said, Dad's surgery was successful, but his condition remained serious due to his age. Mom and I took turns visiting him, but Alfred and Kimberly never showed up. Then a week after the surgery, the hospital called. Trevor's condition has changed suddenly. Tarek and I took Mom and hurried to the hospital. To my surprise, Alfred and Kimberly were already there. You're here quickly, I told Alfred, who seemed inexplicably pleased. Yeah, we are. Why could he smile when his parent was in critical condition? I soon found out. Hey, honey. What's the status of Trevor's life insurance? Can you ask Savannah? Kimberly whispered into Alfred's ear. In the quiet hospital room, their voices were perfectly audible. I shot a sharp glare at Kimberly. But she just looked slightly surprised with a "what's wrong" expression. Her clueless look made me even angrier. Then the doctor entered the room and examined Dad's condition. I think today is a turning point, the doctor said with a stern expression, causing my husband and Mom and me to break down in tears. Memories of Dad flashed before my eyes like a movie reel. Mom felt the same, holding his hand tightly, her voice trembling with tears. Trevor. She called out his name repeatedly. However, finally, we can finally get it. Yes. This will secure our retirement. I overheard Alfred and Kimberly's conversation. While we were crushed by sadness, they seemed eagerly waiting for Dad to pass away. I remembered Alfred's words from before. At least think about your future. He was talking about Dad's inheritance. Building a new home by using all their savings, the lawyer's office, and now this comment, all the puzzle pieces came together. Mom realized their intentions too, looking at Alfred with a disenchanted expression. They looked like hyenas, eyes sharp, eagerly waiting for their prey to decay. They say when people reach the peak of anger, they become calm. It's true. Mom felt the same as I did, quietly staring at Alfred. Let's step outside, she said, and we left the hospital room to talk in the lounge. You really don't know anything, do you? Mom said, looking at them more in pity than in anger.
What? What do you mean?
Kimberly's face hardened, sensing something was wrong. Alfred still looked confident, but it was just a matter of time. Mom continued.
There's no inheritance for you. What? What do you mean, Mom?
Alfred's expression immediately twisted.
There's nothing to inherit. The house and land are in my name, and Trevor has no assets.
I remembered hearing that. Dad was the type to live in the moment, spending whatever money he had. He had a habit of spending everything, and Mom managed all the finances. The only money he got was for his daily cigarettes. Despite his vague sense of money, he was a good husband and father, and Mom and Dad managed well enough. Dad really had no assets to speak of. If anything, he always carried about $8 for cigarettes in his coin purse.
But he's got life insurance, right? Well, I'm the beneficiary. It has nothing to do with you,
she said sharply. Dad is still alive, after all. Talking about life insurance while he's alive, how obsessed with money are they? Just as I was about to shout in anger, Mom laughed.
Trev's not the type to be knocked down by this. This man survived a motorcycle accident, came back fine from a ski avalanche, and beat cancer and liver cirrhosis by sheer will. You'd better worry about your own husband's inheritance rather than your father-in-law's,
Mom said to Kimberly. It was Alfred who burst out in anger.
Mom, I'm alive. Don't talk about inheritance. It's disrespectful. That's right, Savannah. How rude.
Their anger flared up, realizing they wouldn't get any inheritance and their own inheritance was being discussed. However,
you're doing the same thing. You're saying the same thing to Trevor right now. You realize it now, don't you? Just how unreasonable and rude you all are.
They couldn't say a word in response to Mom's words, and they just stood there in silence. And then, they were just standing there in shock, realizing they had nothing to inherit.
What are we going to do? We built a house and bought a new car, counting on the inheritance. How are we supposed to live next month? We bought so much on credit last month, and oh no! We still have loans for the air conditioner and fridge we bought when we moved.
It was almost comical to see these two adults in their 60s panicking over money, and Tarek and I watched with detached amusement. Then I quietly said,
the mistake was counting on money that you weren't sure you'd ever get. It's incredibly irresponsible.
They didn't have the energy to argue with my criticism. Then Alfred spoke up. We'll have to sell the house. It's the only option. It seemed like the only sensible choice, but Kimberly vehemently refused.
No way. That house is my castle. I'm not selling it. It's the only place where I feel at home, and I'm not giving it up because of this. If Trevor doesn't have an inheritance, then give us Savannah's. Right? Right? Let's do that.
Kimberly pressed Mom insistently.
I'm still alive, you know.
Mom's angry shout sounded like the punchline of a comedy sketch, and I almost burst out laughing, but I held it in. Alfred glanced at me. Help me, do something. His eyes seemed to plead. At that moment, Tarek, who works as a banker, spoke up.
Why don't you consult with a financial planner? If you have no income and no savings, there might not be much you can do. What do you mean? I think selling the house is the most reasonable option. Fortunately, you don't have a mortgage, so selling it would get you some cash to live on.
Selling the house. It was the only way to get through this crisis. But Kimberly was relentless.
I'm not selling the house. No way. If you're so insistent, why don't you cover our living expenses? You're our brother-in-law.
Now she turned her wrath towards us. But Tarek deftly dodged it. That's impossible.
I only invest in things that yield a profit.
With years of experience in the loan department, his words carried a lot of weight. Even if there was a return, I would never invest in a couple like them. As we were discussing, a doctor came to call for Mom. The moment had finally come. I braced myself. When Mom came back from the hospital room,
I suppose this is bad news for you. Trevor has regained consciousness,
she said, giving Alfred and the others a cold stare. Tears of relief streamed down Tarek and my faces at Mom's words. Alfred and the others, having realized that they wouldn't inherit anything no matter what happened to Dad, seemed indifferent to his condition, but trying to keep up appearances as his children.
Dad, that's great news. Yes, really, Alfred.
They uttered those insincere words. When Tarek and I followed Mom into the hospital room, Alfred and the others tried to come along as if nothing had happened. But Mom stopped them right at the door.
You're not needed anymore. Your greed is really sickening. If you have time to visit, you should be thinking about how you're going to survive tomorrow.
She shooed them away like stray dogs. And then she concluded, I have a saying for you all.
Thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny.
Alfred and the others stared blankly at Mom's sudden words.
Huh, what? In short, your thoughts ultimately determine your fate. Unless you change your thoughts, your destiny won't change. Take a moment here and reflect on how foolish, ugly, and pathetic your actions are.
With that, she closed the hospital room door. It was also a sign of her determination to cut ties with her children. After that, Alfred and his family had to let go of their house. The newly built house they put up for sale in less than half a year. Even though they bought the land and building for $400,000, the selling price was less than a quarter of that. This was because, right after they bought the house, it was discovered that the land in the area was very unstable, causing property values to plummet. Furthermore, many other houses in the area were also put up for sale, creating an oversupply and making it difficult to find buyers at a good price. But they had no choice but to sell the house, and they reluctantly decided to do so. The two, who were both unemployed, were left with only a small amount of money, insufficient for their retirement years. That money would run out well before their pensions kicked in, 5 years from now. Alfred is reportedly making a small income from day labor, and Savannah is also working a part-time job. Relying on a parent's inheritance and ending up ruining oneself, such a ridiculous story really does happen. I hope they understand the weight of Mom's words.
Well, surprisingly, those kinds of stories do happen. In the end, when people become obsessed with money, they can't make sound judgments. I've had a client who said, once my parents are gone, I'll use the inheritance to pay off my mortgage early, so please set up a 20-year loan for me.
It seems there are quite a few people like that in the world, yes. It's really troubling, isn't it? Bankers deal with all sorts of people, and it must be a very tough job.
There are plenty more stories like that. Well, I can't say much due to confidentiality, but
maybe I'll let Tarek be the next storyteller. He might have even more interesting stories to share, just kidding. While hospitalized and under dietary restrictions, my stepchild, Chelsea, brought a large amount of snacks into the hospital room and ate them.
This could be life-threatening.
When I scolded her, Chelsea shouted back,
If you had made healthy meals, I wouldn't be sick. Stop taking your frustrations out on me.
Then she said to me,
"You act all high and mighty, but you're just leeching off my dad."
She twisted her mouth and glared at me with angry eyes.
"Get a divorce and disappear somewhere."
Then, all right. When I got back to the car, my husband William called, and I reported my interaction with Chelsea. He yelled at me.
"She is sick. You need to be more supportive to her."
I didn't respond and hung up the phone. I moved to a hotel to distance myself from Chelsea and William, but then my friend Elizabeth showed me a certain picture, and my mind changed. "Chelsea, I'll give you the divorce you want. But before that, I'll expose the true nature of your beloved dad. Look forward to it." I'm Whitney, a 45-year-old housewife. I married my colleague William 5 years ago. I was so focused on work that before I knew it, I was in my late 30s. I thought I had missed my chance to get married, but 7 years ago, William transferred to my department and asked me out. After 2 years of dating, we got married. William divorced his first wife because she cheated on him, and he had an elementary school daughter named Chelsea. My parents and friends were worried, but the Chelsea I met during our engagement was innocent and adorable. I was thrilled to have a child as soon as I got married. Even though she wasn't my biological child, I decided to raise her with love. However, that decision soon wavered. When we got married, Chelsea was in 6th grade and loved games, music, and eating. She would lie on the living room couch, immersed in games and music, always snacking on something.
"If you eat too many snacks, you won't be able to eat dinner."
This is something parents often say to their children, but it was useless with her. She ate 3 meals a day plus a large number of snacks every day. Even for a growing child, eating 2 pancakes and 2 bags of chips before dinner, followed by 3 steaks, bread, and rice for dinner, was clearly too much. She wasn't in any sports clubs, so naturally, she was quite plump.
"Chelsea, I think you're eating too much. It's not good for your health. You often leave the vegetables and just eat the greasy stuff, right?"
When I couldn't take it anymore and warned her, she grimaced in annoyance. "Shut up.
"You're not my real mom, so just leave me alone."
But Chelsea cut me off.
"Your food is okay, but you need to be less nagging. Otherwise, my dad might dump you."
Her insolent tone annoyed me, so I tried talking to William about it, but he just laughed it off.
"Come on, she's just going through a rebellious phase. Give her a break."
"But she is a bit, no, very much a glutton, isn't she?" I pleaded patiently.
"It's not good for her health. She gets angry when there's no food in the house, so I keep snacks stocked, but she eats them all immediately. She hates low-calorie dried fruit." "I had a huge appetite as a kid too. But it settled down before I turned 30. So, don't worry about it."
William looked down at his slim physique and laughed. However, William was in the basketball club until college. The level of physical activity is totally different, so you can't compare them, but William, who doted on her, wouldn't listen. Eventually, when she entered middle school, she started hanging out with friends who were a bad influence. Despite having tests coming up, she would go to band concerts and stay out until late at night. At the same time, her clothing became flashier, and she started getting a lot of piercings.
"You're still in middle school. Going out late at night and wearing revealing clothes is not okay."
I scolded her severely.
"It's dangerous for an adult to walk around alone at night, let alone a child like Chelsea. Plus, wearing revealing clothes. It would be too late if something happened. Aren't all those piercings a bit much?"
"Whitney, you're such a worrywart." Next to her, who pouted, William's relaxed voice chimed in.
"What's the big deal about this?"
"That's right.
Maybe you, being a coward, can't do it, but my friends and I are fine."
I felt like tearing my hair out as Chelsea puffed up her chest. That's not the point.
You don't understand the current times.
Dad gets it,
right?
Seeking agreement, Chelsea looked at William, who gave her a conciliatory smile.
Of course. You can do whatever you wish.
As expected, you understand me a lot. At that moment, I wanted to tell William.
Do whatever you want then.
When Chelsea became a high school senior, she didn't study at all, instead being engrossed in games and music. Predictably, she was in a panic right before college applications. She barely got into the lowest-ranked school, but soon after, she started to frequently feel unwell. She complained of fatigue, exhaustion, stomach aches, nausea, and mild fever. The local clinic diagnosed it as stress from school life. I initially thought so too, but since it kept happening, I urged Chelsea to go to a general hospital.
I'm sensitive, so I don't want shots or tests.
Chelsea whined, and William sympathized.
Forcing her to go is cruel. Let's wait and see for a bit longer. But what if it's something serious? William and I are at work during the day. What if she collapses?
Then Chelsea said as if it were obvious.
Then you should quit your job. That's right. If Whitney takes care of Chelsea, I can work without worry. She can take her to the hospital if needed.
I was momentarily at a loss for words.
But she is your daughter.
Don't be cold.
She's your daughter too, even if you're not blood related.
That's right.
Anyway, Dad earns more than you, so if you quit your job, no one will be inconvenienced.
I felt a sense of fulfillment in my job, but arguing against this for the sake of my daughter was difficult. Reluctantly, I informed my workplace of my resignation. Then Chelsea started treating me like a housekeeper. As soon as she got home from school, it began. Oh no, I forgot to buy pudding. Go to the bakery right now.
Massage my feet. And my shoulders and back too. Why Chinese food? I feel like barbecue today.
When she's feeling unwell, her mood gets even worse. Because she can't sleep, she would call me to the bedroom at night, making me listen to trivial complaints for hours.
That teacher is so annoying. Are you listening? Don't fall asleep.
Finally, she would make unreasonable demands like,
do something about my headache. Hey, William. Can't you do something about her?
Exhausted from lack of sleep and mental fatigue, I tearfully begged William.
I understand wanting to lean on someone when you're not feeling well. But it's really hard for me too.
William frowned and sighed.
You became Chelsea's mom, so you should handle this. A child's whims are cute, aren't they? If you say that, then you take over on weekends.
William shrugged helplessly. I'm working to support you all.
Don't you understand that? At least fulfill our cute daughter's requests with a smile.
Then can't you at least come home a little earlier? I pleaded desperately. You've been working late, and there are a lot of weekend work and overnight business trips. Can't you spend more time with Chelsea? I can't. I'm busy. She's your responsibility, Whitney. William entrusted her to me, refusing to get involved himself. I grew more and more distrustful of him. Even carefree William began to feel a sense of urgency when Chelsea's condition persisted for a year.
A colleague suggested it might be liver problems. We should get her thoroughly checked at the hospital. All right.
I was exasperated that William finally changed his mind after a colleague's suggestion, despite my repeated pleas. Nonetheless, I accompanied them to the hospital. After a series of tests, it was confirmed that she had cirrhosis of the liver.
She has jaundice and ascites. Currently, it's grade B. It's not immediately life-threatening, but it's quite serious. Why did you let it go this far?
I'm sorry. William and Chelsea, usually carefree, hung their heads with serious expressions.
It seems she developed cirrhosis from hepatitis C. Any idea what might have caused it? For example, using poorly sterilized piercing tools?
Oh! Chelsea exclaimed. Realizing the foolishness of her actions, Chelsea looked like she was about to cry, biting her lip.
Will there be surgery?
William asked anxiously, and the doctor replied calmly.
First, she needs to be hospitalized for nutritional and exercise guidance. However, if this continues, it could progress to liver cancer. As soon as her condition stabilizes, she should undergo a liver transplant.
Understood. We watched as the nurse led Chelsea to her room, and then William and I went home to prepare for her hospitalization. While driving, William spoke.
Hey, let's register for a living donor liver transplant. Waiting for a donor might worsen Chelsea's condition.
That's true. Then it's up to you, Whitney.
What?
I stared at William's profile.
You're registering too, right?
No. I can't handle pain. I couldn't believe my ears.
They say donors can suffer post-operative complications like bowel obstructions or duodenal ulcers. If that happened to me, it would be bad, right? I'm the one working to support us.
That's true, but... I wanted to ask, is it okay if it's me?
Don't worry. They say it's not life-threatening. The liver regenerates even if part of it is cut out. It's not a big deal.
I felt uncomfortable with William's cheerful smile, but I couldn't just watch Chelsea's condition worsen. So, I took the compatibility test and matched, registering as the only donor. This way, as soon as Chelsea's health improved, I could give her part of my liver. I was honestly terrified, but even though we're not blood-related, I am her mom. I wanted to support her in any way I could. One day, we got a call from the hospital. Chelsea's condition had stabilized, and they wanted to schedule the liver transplant surgery. Since she hated me, I feared she would refuse if she knew I was the donor. So, I asked the doctor to keep it a secret. Soon, the surgery date was set, and I went to the hospital for pre-surgery tests. On my way back, I stopped by Chelsea's room and was shocked. Despite being under dietary restrictions, she had brought a large amount of snacks from the hospital shop and was eating them. I couldn't help but lash out in frustration.
You know your condition, right? This could be life-threatening. Take your health seriously.
Chelsea spat out some snacks and blamed me.
This is all your fault. What? If you had made healthier meals and snacks these past 5 years, I wouldn't be sick. Take responsibility.
Her cruel words left me feeling drained.
What are you talking about? You were the one who demanded high-calorie meals and snacks. Stop taking it out on me.
I retorted sharply, and Chelsea sneered.
All you do is boss me around.
It's annoying, she said in a low voice, distorting her face. I don't need you anymore. I don't even want to see you.
You act all high and mighty leeching off my dad.
Get a divorce and disappear. Her words, filled with hatred, pierced my heart like sharp arrows. My anger quickly subsided, and I became calm.
Then, all right,
I said and left the room. When I got back to the car, William called, so I told him about my interaction with Chelsea, and he yelled at me.
What? Are you stupid? She is sick. Be more supportive to her. But what if her condition worsens due to stress?
I felt utterly miserable. Why do I have to be treated like this? I hung up the phone without replying and drove out of the parking lot. When I got home, I packed my suitcase with essentials and left. I decided to stay at a hotel for a while because I didn't want to see William or Chelsea's faces. The next day, I met my friend Elizabeth at a cafe and told her about William and Chelsea. Elizabeth looked troubled.
Actually,
She started to say, but then stopped. After fiddling with her phone for a while, she showed me some pictures. I was shocked.
you should look into this. Right. Thank you.
Elizabeth sent me the images from her phone. As I looked at them, a fierce anger welled up, making my whole body feel hot. Chelsea, I'll give you the divorce you want. But before that, I'll expose the true nature of your beloved dad. Just wait and see. After parting ways with Elizabeth, I went to a real estate agent and quickly signed a lease for a short-term apartment. I arranged for movers and transferred all my belongings there. I also found a full-time job and started working right away. I ignored William's calls and messages, but 3 days later, when I got home and checked my phone, there were 50 missed calls. Reluctantly, I called him back, only to be yelled at furiously.
Where the hell are you? Why aren't you coming home? And why did you send divorce papers without a word? It's none of your business.
I coldly replied to William, who was speaking rapidly, which made him even angrier.
Don't mess with me. You're Chelsea's mom.
His thunderous roar made me pull the phone away from my ear.
You even refused her liver transplant. Get to the hospital and re-register now.
No. I won't donate to her anymore, I said firmly, and I heard William sigh over the phone.
You're being childish over a little fight.
It's pathetic.
Say whatever you want.
Don't you care about her?
Chelsea and I are strangers, right? And I've never found her cute since we got married.
I seized the moment to speak my mind.
Did you file the divorce papers? I can't. If we get divorced, I'll be removed from the family and won't be able to donate.
I sighed in frustration at William's irritated tone. Why do you insist on me?
Why don't you, her dad, donate?
William dismissed my reasonable suggestion with annoyance.
Because I can't handle pain. And there are complications, right?
It seems so.
Then I'm out. Chelsea's not in immediate danger anyway. If you refuse, we'll wait for another donor.
Really? William prioritizes himself over Chelsea. I was utterly dismayed by William's self-centered attitude.
I'll visit the hospital next week. We need to talk.
With that, I hung up the phone. A week later, as promised, I went to Chelsea's hospital room, and as soon as she saw me, she yelled,
"Hey! Don't just leave like that. Tell the doctor to re-register as a donor."
I was disgusted by her lack of manners in asking for help. Neither she nor William had any sense of decency. No.
You're the one who told me to get lost and divorce Dad. That's not true.
Chelsea stammered, trying to make excuses. I don't want you two to break up because of me. Right, Dad? You don't want to divorce Whitney, do you? Chelsea pouted and looked up at William, who nodded so vigorously his head might fall off.
Of course not. I want us to keep living happily together as a family,
William said with a smile, but I handed over the photos and investigation report from my bag.
Really? But she seems to have another happy family.
Chelsea's face turned pale as she looked at the pictures.
Chelsea, have you been secretly meeting your mom?
William asked angrily, and Chelsea replied sheepishly.
Well,
William slammed the photos on the hospital table. In them were images of Chelsea with a plump woman who looked a lot like her, a man in a suit, and Chelsea. They were enjoying a meal at a restaurant, probably taken secretly from a nearby table. Another picture showed the three of them walking down the street with high-end shopping bags, looking happy.
How did you know I was meeting my mom and her new husband? Hiring a detective is so mean.
Chelsea countered, and I explained.
I noticed the high-end bags in your room when I was cleaning. I wondered where you got the money since you don't work. Mind your own business. I can't just ignore it. I'm still your mom after all.
I smiled at her, who was glaring at me.
When you came home after eating out, you sometimes smelled like perfume. I never believed you were just eating out with friends. I didn't notice at all.
William tilted his head, and Chelsea pouted.
Dad, you come home after I've showered. And on weekends, you come home after midnight. Oh, right.
William scratched his head and laughed.
It happened so often that I got suspicious and hired a detective agency. I'm relieved it wasn't bad friends you were hanging out with. None of your business. Dad, I'm sorry. I couldn't say no to Mom.
Chelsea tried to appease William with a fawning smile.
I understand.
William forced a smile. But his smile quickly disappeared when I played the recording.
Hey Mom, my dad is super cheap. He works at a big company, but my allowance is only $100 a month. Isn't that ridiculous? I can barely buy one outfit. This poor lifestyle sucks. Chelsea, that's tough. For now, endure it and marry someone like my husband who works at a trading company.
Her mom spoke in a sweet voice similar to her, and a man's voice agreed.
Chelsea, you should come to our place. I'll buy you anything you want. But if I move, I can't see my friends. And leaving Dad alone would be pitiful. He doesn't have any friends. That's right. You're kind for not abandoning Dad.
The three of them laughed heartily, and William turned red to his ears. Chelsea turned pale and curled up on the bed.
Chelsea, this is terrible.
After a long silence, William spoke.
You know the reason for the divorce was your mom's affair with this guy, right? And now you're secretly meeting the three of them.
Though he spoke calmly, William's eyes were filled with anger, and she was shaken.
But her new husband is a good person. He buys me everything I want and takes me to fancy restaurants. Honestly, I think Mom made the right choice marrying him.
In her panic, Chelsea was saying strange things.
When I ask Dad, he refuses to go to fancy restaurants. Why don't we have money when he works at such a big company? It's not like he gambles or anything like that.
William's face twisted with rage.
That's none of your business. Besides, you've been secretly eating lavish meals every month, and that's why you developed cirrhosis from hepatitis C. From now on, you are forbidden to meet them.
Don't you know?
Even after a divorce, a child has the right to see their mom.
Chelsea retorted defiantly.
I thought marrying this woman would increase my salary, and we could live in luxury, but my allowance is small, we don't eat out, and all I get is Whitney's complaints. There's no point in being at home.
Ah, so that's why he was so nice to me during our engagement. One mystery solved, I felt a sense of clarity. Next to my smiling face, William spoke to Chelsea.
Look, I work myself to the bone to support you. Do you think I like working overtime and going on business trips? But Dad, I'm saving for your future. That's more important than living in luxury now.
I stared at William's profile as he tried to reason with Chelsea.
What? What's wrong?
William asked irritably.
I talked to your boss recently. You know, we used to work in the same department.
Oh, what did you talk about? Chelsea also listened with interest.
I told him that William has been too busy to be at home for the past few years. I asked if he could reduce your overtime, weekend work, and business trips.
He was confused. William suddenly looked shocked. He must have known what was coming next.
Your boss said our department has been slow lately. There's almost no overtime, weekend work, or business trips. Everyone leaves on time every day, Isn't that strange?
I then displayed images on my phone. I placed several photos and an investigation report from my bag next to the documents about Chelsea.
You've been a regular at a girls' night club downtown? Going there 4 times a week after work? No wonder you come home so late.
Chelsea was shocked and snatched the report from my hand. As she read it, her expression turned horrified. Her hands trembled as she read aloud in a low voice.
On weekends, he spends the night with a 20-year-old employee at the apartment he bought for her. They travel together every few months. Incredible, it's like you're living together. Do you realize you have a wife and daughter waiting for you at home? I can spend my salary however I want. It's none of your business.
William grumbled.
She's saving for college, so I have to frequent the club to help raise her salary. Supporting someone working hard is just being a good person. It's like volunteering.
I laughed mockingly at William's excuse.
That apartment is the same as Elizabeth's. It seems the residents have been gossiping about seeing you shopping and spending time together in the lobby. Oh, do they think we're a handsome couple?
You're a fool, no. I sneered at William.
They're laughing at you for being a middle-aged man playing around with a girl young enough to be your daughter. Even I'm beyond angry, I'm just dumbfounded.
William's eyes widened with anger.
Don't call it an affair. I truly love her.
Disgusting. Chelsea contorted her face and spat out.
Dad, are you serious? Having an affair with a girl my age is totally messed up. Shut up. Let me enjoy my romance.
William retorted with a defiant expression. As Chelsea and I grew more irritated, he spoke passionately.
She said she wants to marry me after graduating college. Rejoice, Chelsea. You'll have a young and beautiful mom.
William's sleazy smile made Chelsea sigh with a troubled expression. Dad, wake up.
You're just being taken for your money. I don't want a mom who's close to my age.
That must be a joke.
I don't care. I'll marry her even if you don't approve. Don't be ridiculous. If you have money to spend on someone else, increase my allowance. Is that girl more important than me?
Chelsea shouted, and William responded with a smile.
No, Chelsea, you're more important. But you seem like you'll be fine with a healthy liver.
Chelsea shot me a sharp look.
That's right. You can get divorced, but give me your liver first.
She got out of bed and approached me, grabbing my arm with surprising strength and hurling insults.
That organ regenerates, right? So just give it to me. You're my mom on paper, so do your duty. Be useful for once, you idiot. This is ridiculous. I've done my best for you and your dad these 5 years, and now you're threatening me?
I said, exasperated, and William sneered.
Are you scared of the surgery?
Whitney, you're a coward and a hypocrite. Pathetic.
I told you before, if you're so concerned, why don't you do it yourself?
I said clearly, and Chelsea defended William.
Dad was incompatible, so it's not his fault.
That's right. Sorry, Chelsea. William made an apologetic gesture. I sighed and pressed the play button on the recording.
Because I hate pain. There's also the risk of complications, right? It seems so. Then I'm out. Chelsea's not in immediate danger. If you refuse, we'll wait for another donor.
Chelsea was stunned by the recording.
What? That's your dad's honest opinion. He didn't even take the compatibility test. If you don't believe me, ask the doctor.
Chelsea turned to William with a stiff neck. William was sweating profusely and seemed at a loss for words.
In the end, he prioritizes himself over you. No, it's not like that.
Chelsea's eyes filled with tears. This is so terrible. I trusted Dad completely. William callously added.
But I prefer slimmer girls. Chelsea, like your mom, you keep getting fatter.
It's your own fault you're sick. There was nothing fatherly about William's protruding lips and cheek scratching.
Why not ask your mom? She's a blood relative, so it might be possible.
William proposed as if he had a brilliant idea, leaving Chelsea dumbfounded. Dad, did you forget? Mom has diabetes and high blood pressure. She can't donate. Oh, right. He had completely forgotten about his ex-wife's condition. William and Chelsea exchanged looks and then sat on the floor, seemingly resigned. Please, Whitney. Give her your liver. I absolutely can't do it. You're our only hope. As my daughter, you should be happy to help. If you refuse, I'll tell everyone in the hospital that Dad's new wife mistreated me.
Enough!
I shouted angrily.
How many times do I have to say it? I will never register as a donor for you again. I won't be used as a housekeeper, insulted, and then have my liver taken away. Are you still holding a grudge? What a jerk you are!
Frustrated, I crouched down and pulled out snacks from under the bed. I pushed away Chelsea's hand as she tried to snatch them from me and walked into the hallway with the snacks. Then I headed to the nurse's station and raised my voice.
Chelsea is eating snacks again!
Before I finished speaking, a nurse rushed over and sternly confronted Chelsea.
How many times do I have to tell you to stop? At this rate, even if a donor appears, the transplant won't be possible.
I'm sorry.
Chelsea's dad, you need to be stricter with her. Act like parents for once.
Glancing at the dejected Chelsea and William, I left the hospital room with a smile. Despite being forbidden by the doctor, Chelsea had been secretly eating snacks and drinking juice instead of hospital food. Her test results were so poor that her treatment was prolonged, and she had to take a break from school.
At least take the donor suitability test.
The nurse suggested to William, but he refused flatly, which made her furious.
You spend money and love on your mistress but refuse to help me. I don't need you anymore. I'll never rely on you again.
I said no.
Just wait patiently until another donor appears. Is that what a dad should say? Unbelievable.
They fought fiercely in the hospital room every day, and their relationship was completely cold. Later, William signed the divorce papers I sent him and returned them. I filed it immediately, and the divorce was finalized without issue. I also received the $10,000 settlement payment in one lump sum for William's affair with the nightclub employee, which was a relief. However, the problems began afterward. Even after the divorce, William continued to pester me. Knowing where I worked, he would wait for me at the station near my office after work and pressure me to reconcile. Come on, Whitney, I need you. Let's get back together. Chelsea's medical bills are piling up. After paying you the settlement, my savings are gone.
You blew your savings on your mistress. Why don't you ask her for help?
I said coldly.
She dumped me when she found out I was married. Chelsea won't talk to me either. I'm lonely.
That's your problem.
If you keep stalking me, I'll call the police.
I yelled, and William finally stopped showing up. Afterward, news of his affair with a 20-year-old got out at work, and he lost the respect of his colleagues. Now, he reportedly goes to work feeling awkward. When Chelsea told her mother about her hospitalization and bragged about her past misdeeds towards me, she complained about the donor registration being revoked. Her mother replied coldly, "I never thought you couldn't be grateful. I'm disappointed. I once hoped we could live together, but let's forget about it. Get along with your dad." She read the message and cried, taking out her frustration on the nurses. Now, she is known as the biggest troublemaker in the ward. Since I canceled my donor registration, no new donors have appeared. Her years of overeating and drinking have taken a toll, and her condition has only worsened. Despite hastily adhering to a diet regimen, it was too late, and the doctors warned she could develop liver cancer at any time. She now lives in constant fear, crying through her days in the hospital. Over these past 5 years, I realized something profoundly. No matter how much you give, some people will never appreciate it. Though I went through tough times, I also found good things. A coworker who encouraged me during my low points became close, and we started dating and eventually got married. At the home party held instead of a wedding, Elizabeth and my parents were relieved by my new husband's kind and sincere nature. I want to build a happy family with him this time.
You're the famous photographer. Are you shooting today?
The woman in front of me is staring at me excitedly. We met on the beach during clamming season, and she seems to know that I'm a photographer. Despite her family of 3 playing in the sand, she listens intently to what I have to say. It's a poignant reminder of my early days as a rookie, when people didn't believe I was a photographer and I barely got any assignments. When I tell her that I'm here for a photo shoot, she eagerly volunteers to be the subject. "But could you please not show my child's face?" She says this, pointing to a cute little girl. The girl, about 2 or 3 years old, looks at us with her big, adorable eyes wide open. Of course. "And what about Dad?" When I ask, the father looks pale, glancing around uncertainly and giving vague replies. I guess that's understandable. After all, the dad building a sandcastle with the girl is my husband. My name is Katie. I'm a 30-year-old freelance photographer. For work, I'm often called to school events and weddings in the neighborhood. I capture moments of smiles and friendship, sharing them through my photos. It's not just about taking pictures, but about capturing people's memories and emotions, sharing their happiness. Capturing these joyous moments in people's lives is my job and my passion. But my life's shutter stopped in an instant due to a certain event. My husband, Galton, was a busy businessman. He was involved in the development of leisure facilities and tourist destinations, traveling all over the country. We couldn't spend much time together because of our busy schedules, but the time we did have was special. Even if it was just a little while, the time and smiles with him were what kept me going. I had no intention of quitting my photography. We'll build our careers while supporting each other. We promised and got married. That's when I started looking for ways to work from home instead of being out and about for shoots. First, I posted landscape and permitted portraits on social media as part of my portfolio. By showcasing my work in virtual galleries like online photo exhibitions, not only publishers and peers in photography noticed me, but also a wider general audience. This led to a rapid increase in followers. Thanks to social media, I was able to do live streams, talking about my photography and even making some money from it. I would share my photos while explaining the stories and techniques behind them. Communicating through photography was fun and fulfilling. I balanced outdoor shooting with my social media presence, steadily growing my follower base. Galton was still constantly on business trips. Inevitably, I spent a lot of time with my in-laws, who thankfully took an interest in my social media activities. As I taught them how to use smartphones and social media, we grew closer, and they often tuned into my photos and live streams. Both are wonderful people, and even when Galton was away, I didn't feel lonely and enjoyed fulfilling days. However, there was a significant void in our lives. We couldn't have children. Despite numerous tests, we were unable to conceive. We both wanted kids, so years into our marriage without a child put a strain on us. Initially supportive, Galton grew tired of the financial burden and frequent clinic visits, and I could feel us drifting apart. His involvement in a major project, requiring constant travel, didn't help. His interest shifted from our elusive treatment to his challenging work. He cared less about our childlessness, talking more about work instead. I tried to understand his busyness, but we were emotionally distant.
Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client, and it looks like a new project is starting. I'll be away overnight for a while starting next week.
As he unpacked dirty shirts from his large suitcase, Galton told me this. He had just gotten back, but I quickly started the laundry. Galton wouldn't bother to clean or buy new shirts otherwise.
It's faster and less risky this way,
he would say, but I wanted to save where I could.
So, about the hospital.
That's impossible.
You know I have to be there in person, right?
I can't leave work, so let's skip it next week. I sighed quietly, so Galton wouldn't hear. I had made an appointment, but there was nothing I could do if he was traveling. Galton's actions caused trouble for his company, and it was painful to see the work he was once praised for being overshadowed by his personal life. I never wanted to be a hindrance.
But, you know, as busy as I am, it's tough.
Katie, you go out for shoots too, right?
Let's both keep up the good work. Yeah. Take care of yourself, Galton.
I swallowed my words as he casually dismissed the topic. Maybe Galton no longer wanted children. But I was too afraid to ask. Should I accept this silently, or should I bring it up, even indirectly? The uncertainty was unsettling. I was adept at capturing people's joy and sorrow through my camera. Yet now, I was living each day unaware of my own emotions. Slowly, I felt trapped within the frame of my own photographs. One day, a fine white envelope with the logo of a famous resort company arrived at the house. It didn't seem like just any direct mail, so I hastily opened it. Inside was a voucher for a stay at a luxury hotel by the sea. Apparently for 3 people. Why was this sent to me? Feeling a stir in my heart, I quickly went to Galton.
Galton, this arrived. Do you know anything about it?
Of course, I wasn't accusing him of anything. I was careful not to sound mean, just asking naturally. Galton stopped reading his newspaper and looked at me. His expression was blank, but his gaze hardened slightly, almost glaring. I had never been looked at that way before and couldn't hide the sinking feeling in my chest.
That's for a colleague whose plans didn't work out, so it was sent to us. It's nothing strange, so can I have it back?
He reached out his hand. Without saying a word, I handed him the envelope with the tickets, and he snatched it away. But when he saw the address, he looked back at me with clear annoyance.
This is addressed to me. Don't open my stuff without asking.
I was surprised and hurriedly apologized. However, it wasn't unusual for direct mail to come to my busy salesman husband. We usually disposed of the ones that arrived at home, so I was taken aback by his reaction.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was direct mail. I was just checking. You should have asked me since I'm here today.
Galton took the envelope to his room, and I couldn't ask any more about the tickets. Although I didn't fully understand why he needed to get tickets for a colleague, I had to accept his explanation. But then, half a month later, something else happened. In July, just before Independence Day, and when we had a memorial service planned at my in-laws,
I've got a long business trip,
he suddenly said. I was initially speechless.
A business trip?
In my work, I often get requests from families or for landscape photography. But I had taken time off for the memorial service. Freelancers and even regular companies usually have Independence Day off. And so did Galton's company, at least in the past. Galton shrugged slightly and forced a smile. It just came up suddenly. I have to work without a break. So, can you attend the memorial service for me? I knew he took pride in his work and had been serious about his career even before our marriage. But increasingly, I found myself doubting the reasons for his work and trips. In the end, he left for work, pulling his favorite suitcase. The news reached my in-laws just in time, and while they were angry at his attitude, they made sure I didn't feel uncomfortable. We're sorry you cleared your schedule for this. When I see Galton next, I'll give him a stern talking to, said my MIL, Helen. All I could do was give a vague smile. I was supposed to stay a few days after the service. Galton was their only child, and they didn't want me to leave too soon, so I ended up staying as originally planned. I brought my camera and took pictures of my in-laws doing housework, living their daily life, and even landscapes I don't usually focus on. I occupied my time with shooting plans, but part of me felt the absence of Galton, who should have been there. I decided to go to the beach one station away, both for work and a change of scenery. During the spring and summer holidays, the beach is lively with clam digging, and ideal family groups enjoy their time on the sands. Some people are under colorful beach umbrellas, enjoying walks and sunbathing. I walked along the beach with my camera. Suddenly, I stopped at the sound of a familiar voice, coming from a family building a sandcastle. I was glad I wasn't holding my camera. I would have dropped it at the sight. In the circle was Galton. He was with a young woman and a toddler, building a sandcastle together. They looked like a happy family, gathering white sand and shells. I couldn't believe my eyes. But the hotel voucher that had arrived at home, Galton's frequent long business trips, his indifference, it all piled up like sand before me. It would have been an ideal family scene for a photo assignment. But I couldn't believe my husband was there. The child between them looked about 2 or 3 years old. About the time I started feeling Galton drifting away. He had another family. Though I wasn't sure if the child was his, my instincts as a wife told me there was a blood connection. I felt as if a glass frame inside me had shattered mercilessly. The frame was supposed to hold our happy, smiling faces as a couple. I steeled myself and approached. Not Galton, but the woman. She was wearing a large straw hat and looked surprised when I suddenly spoke to her. I forced a smile and apologized for the abrupt approach. Then, I handed her my business card, explaining that I was a freelance photographer. The card only had my professional name, but it also included my social media contact. She looked at the card with interest, then started searching for me on her mobile phone. In the background, Galton, clearly aware of me, was frozen, staring at a spot on the beach. Would you mind if I take a photo of your family? I sometimes do live streams showing photography tips.
What? I know Katie. I follow you. You post mobile photography tips, right?
She was excited, not knowing my relation to Galton, happy to be approached by a minor celebrity on social media. I was surprised she was a follower, but she was eager, even for a live stream. I hesitantly asked, and before I could finish,
"Of course."
She was already excitedly agreeing. I felt guilty, like I was deceiving her, but my goal was to document Galton's other family.
Please teach me some photography tips for moms. Galton, you're okay with it, right?
Galton was caught off guard. Stammering, he tried to avoid looking at me, desperately thinking of an excuse. We shouldn't, because of the face reveal. I'm a model for brochures, Can you just make sure my child isn't in the frame? It turned out the other woman, Lisa, was a model I had met through my husband's company's public relations work. Of course, I agreed and adjusted my phone camera to keep the child out of the shot. I quickly set up for a live stream, pretending to teach the mother, with Galton unavoidably in the center of the frame. His forced smile was interpreted positively by viewers, quickly spreading as cute nervous dad. After the stream, I thanked them and left. But within minutes, Galton caught up with me, leaving Lisa and the child behind. I asked him bluntly,
"What are you trying to do?"
He remained silent, looking annoyed. He probably felt awkward with Lisa and came to me as an escape. I wonder what his intentions were in stopping me. Finally, he spoke heavily.
"Katie, understand me. What's there to understand without a proper explanation? It's clear enough if you look."
Look, I couldn't help it. I had a child with her before I could with you. It's fine.
Lisa's family is wealthy. She doesn't need me to marry her.
Galton confessed, his defiance revealing the truth. It seemed unlikely that a young woman who got pregnant would say something so convenient. Probably, Lisa suspected he was married.
"I wanted a child.
But you couldn't have one.
Lisa is nice, and the kid is cute, like her. But it doesn't mean I hate you or don't want to live with you."
His contradictory words left me holding my aching head. Apparently, he wanted to maintain the status quo. "I won't bother you.
This situation is perfect for me."
Isn't this good enough? How could it be? I should have argued back. But I was so overwhelmed I lost my voice. In my silence, he sighed in victory and was about to leave. But someone unexpected arrived. It was my in-laws.
"Galton, who are that woman and child?"
My Fael, Nathan, red-faced, confronted him. Galton flinched at their sudden appearance.
"Why? We saw the live stream notification. Who's the woman and child if you were on a business trip? Skipping a visit home for some unknown woman and a child?"
Without waiting for Nathan, Helen stepped in to defend me, showering Galton with fierce words. I was shocked. They had seen the live stream and realized something was wrong. They were stunned to see Galton as a husband with an unfamiliar woman and had rushed over. Confronted by his parents, Galton had to confess everything about Lisa and the child.
"Ungrateful child."
He received a strong slap from Helen. Nathan glared at Galton with a look so fierce, I thought he might have punched him if Helen hadn't acted first. My in-laws left Galton behind and came to take me away. Following their apologies and strong encouragement, I decided to divorce. After uncovering evidence of Galton's affair with Lisa, his mistress, the matter was initially settled with a compensation agreement. However, as the divorce proceedings and investigations progressed, various facts came to light. Firstly, it was revealed that Lisa indeed knew Galton was married. Considering she agreed to continue the relationship despite being pregnant, it seemed she had prepared herself for being involved with a married man. Her motivation wasn't just financial, she likely wanted to keep Galton as long as possible. However, she genuinely didn't know that I was his wife and, upon realizing she was following me, blocked all my social media accounts. She angrily started posting on various forums, but this only resulted in more sympathy for me, as she publicly exposed herself as the mistress. It caused trouble in her own family, leading to her being nearly kicked out of her home. Desperately, she even tried to move into my former in-laws' house after I left. But they firmly refused her entry. Next, Galton's secrets began to unravel. During the compensation claim investigations, numerous women and men associated with him came to light. It turned out he had multiple affairs during his business trips, involving repeated liaisons with several women, some of whom were engaged or married. I decided to send out the data from that live stream. A little investigation would reveal that I, his lawful wife, was broadcasting, and the people in the frame were his mistress and their child. As a result, women deceived into thinking he was single, and husbands who felt their wives were stolen, were inflamed with anger and confronted Galton. He found himself facing lawsuits from every direction, with no choice but to accept them all. As more revelations about Galton emerged, Lisa, to everyone's surprise, fled with their child. Clearly out of love, she chose to escape her relationship with him. Lisa's social media uproar eventually settled down, and as her accounts disappeared, I decided to let her go. But considering her nature of boasting about affairs on social media, it was unlikely she would just vanish. True to form, Lisa started using an entirely different account. However, her posts playing the tragic heroine were quickly identified, attracting a wave of criticism. She would delete her account when things got tough, only to reappear under a new one, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Abandoned even by Lisa, Galton's last resort was to turn to his in-laws, but they were enraged upon learning of his multiple affairs. Without any apologies and simply pleading for help, his parents decided to sever ties with their son. Following the scandal, Galton was burdened with substantial compensation payments. As the legal proceedings progressed, inquiries from his mistresses and their husbands flooded his company, complicating the situation even further. Moreover, this wasn't the worst outcome. The unprecedented scandal of his affair and child being exposed on social media was disastrous. The fact that the reveal happened during a business trip made the information spread rapidly, and the company's facilities and reviews were flooded with shocked and angry comments. The fallout from the scandal spread internally and externally, diminishing the company's trust. The executives, feeling a crisis, hastily strategized communication plans, consulting with experts due to their lack of experience in handling such situations. Meanwhile, they strictly instructed employees to provide accurate information to quell the chaos. Inquiries and condemnations from inside and outside the company poured in, and Galton's reputation plummeted. He became an outcast at work, completely isolated. Amidst the uncomfortable atmosphere, he was soon asked to resign and had to look for a new job. Originally proficient and successful in sales, he was favored by an older demographic who didn't use social media and quickly found new employment. However, his nature didn't change. Within half a year, he was involved in new scandals, such as pursuing his manager's wife and attempting to charge a shabby motel stay as a business expense. He was fired, joined new companies, and was repeatedly dismissed for causing turmoil in personal relationships. Now, he seems to be perpetually bouncing from job to job within the industry. Meanwhile, I've maintained a relationship with my former in-laws after the divorce. They've been considerate, allowing me to live peacefully. Their support was crucial for me to move on and start anew after ending my relationship with Galton. Following the divorce, I struggled with photographing children, finding it painful. My in-laws, despite being betrayed by their son, strived to present a united front, supporting me. They helped me believe that my relationship with Galton wasn't everything and that I could trust again. One day, I captured a photo of them talking peacefully. I plan to feature this photo in my upcoming online exhibition as the main piece. Although they were quite shy about it, I believe they'll be happy with it in the end.
What happened to you, all covered in blood?
I screamed when my 10th grade daughter, who was supposed to have gone to my husband's hometown, came home with blood streaming down her forehead. After rushing to tend to her, I immediately contacted my husband. Then, when he answered the phone, I couldn't help but yell at him.
Where are you?
I told you I'm on a business trip, didn't I? I was dumbfounded by his unexpected reply. Because I clearly remember seeing off my husband and daughter for their trip to his hometown 5 days ago. There in front of me was my child, seriously injured. Seeing my confusion, my daughter revealed a shocking truth. My name is Camelia, a 40-year-old housewife, working part-time. My husband Bruno, also 40, is a salesman who visits various schools to sell high school textbooks. Trust is important, he says, and his neatly composed demeanor is just so cool. Our daughter Laura just entered the 10th grade this fall. She used to be so clingy to me, but now, she's so responsible that she's often cooking dinner by the time I get back from my part-time job. Bruno, Laura, and I were living a peaceful life until my mother became bedridden due to an internal illness 5 years ago. Since then, I've been busy juggling caregiving and part-time work. I haven't been able to visit my in-laws much since my mother fell ill, even missing Thanksgiving greetings. But during those times, Bruno would say, "Don't push yourself. Isn't it great to have an understanding husband?" And go back to his parents' home alone, joking and laughing. I felt terrible, but with my hands full caring for my mother, I was grateful for his understanding. However, 3 years ago, my mother-in-law passed away suddenly in an accident. My father-in-law, John, was so heartbroken, as they were very close, and Bruno's trips back home became more frequent. Moreover, Bruno would say things like, "I want to take Dad on a trip to cheer him up," or, "I want to treat him to a delicious steak," resulting in expenses increasing with each visit, $300, $500. But, as I had been neglecting my visits to my in-laws to care for my own mother, I couldn't really complain about the money. Then one day, as usual, Bruno mentioned the expenses for his next trip home. "The next time I go back to my place, it's going to cost $1,000.
What?
I couldn't help but wonder if Bruno really needed such a large sum of money for a single trip home, but he never explained the details of the expenses. I guess it must be necessary, if I think of it as showing gratitude to John. I convinced myself with that thought. However, due to the sudden expense, I had no choice but to temporarily withdraw money from the account I had been saving for Laura's education. I'll have to cut back on trips to the beauty salon for a while and make sure not to dip into Laura's savings. From then on, I worked hard to save money and gradually replenish my daughter's account. While living these frugal days, Laura successfully completed her school applications. Just when things seemed to be settling down, "I want to see my granddaughter. It's been a while," John said.
"All right. Let's take Laura and Dad out for steak as a reward for always working hard." "Really? Yay!"
Seeing Lara's beaming smile. "Thank you for always being so patient," I said, stroking her head. She had never complained, despite always having to make sacrifices and helping with my mother's care. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Then, on the morning of the day they were to visit Bruno's parents, Laura cheerfully waved.
"I'll bring back some souvenirs,"
she said.
"Have fun,"
I replied with a smile. Everyone in the family was smiling. Little did we know then what was about to happen. It was around noon, 5 days after Bruno and Laura left for his parents' house. I was preparing lunch in the kitchen when I heard the entrance door open. "Who is it, coming in without ringing the bell?" Startled, I called out,
"Hello!"
and headed to the entrance, only to find Laura standing there with blood streaming down her forehead.
"What happened?"
I screamed, almost like a cry, and looked around for Bruno, but he was nowhere to be seen. Trembling, I let my trembling daughter into the house and immediately called Bruno.
"Where are you?"
"I'm at work. I told you I went on a business trip the day after I took Laura to my parents' place." I was utterly confused, as I hadn't heard anything about his work.
"I didn't know about any trip, and more importantly, Laura has come back seriously injured."
"It's probably just a fall. Girls her age tend to exaggerate. Don't take it seriously. Bye." Bruno hastily said just that and hung up forcibly. I could never just accept such an absurd story from him. "Oh, really?" While tending to my daughter. "Why did you get hurt? Did Dad go to work?" I asked. Laura, with a pale face and trembling lips, finally murmured, Dad pushed me. I was shocked, but gently rubbed her back and listened to her story. Then, an unbelievable truth came to light. Bruno had been keeping secrets from us, and he had inflicted a serious injury on Lara after she discovered them. And that wasn't all. He had threatened Lara.
"If you tell anyone about this, next time it won't just be an injury,"
he said. John returned from an outing just as Bruno hesitated, allowing Lara to escape from her in-laws' house. Fortunately, Lara had some money with her, enabling her to take the bus alone. But I can only imagine how anxious she must have been, hiding her injuries and making her way back here. I will never forgive anyone who hurts my sweet daughter. I swore revenge, not only for Bruno raising his hand against our daughter but also for the secrets he kept from us. After hearing about Bruno's misdeeds, I reached for my mobile phone to call John. And was surprised to see a mountain of missed calls from him. "Oh, John, I'm sorry. I was cooking and didn't notice the phone."
"No, it's fine. More importantly, Lara had to rush back home for some urgent matter. I was worried if she made it back safely, that's why I called so many times."
Hearing John's words, I was speechless. Bruno had concocted such a lie to cover up the fact that his injured daughter had fled back home. I then spilled everything to John, who was unaware of the situation, about what I learned from Lara.
"Lara will be okay. I'm taking her to the hospital."
"But I can't forgive Bruno."
"Could you please keep him at your house for a while so I can deal with him?"
John replied.
"Of course,"
and promised to help. He agreed to cunningly persuade Bruno to stay at his parents' house for a while. In the meantime, I ran around making various preparations for confronting Bruno. 5 days later, after finishing the investigation into Bruno's secrets, I was heading to his parents' house. Just as I was about to ring the entrance doorbell, I saw Lara running towards me, out of breath.
"Mom. Wait. I told you to stay at home. I can't just sit there. He needs to take responsibility for my injury."
I had planned to confront Bruno alone at his parents' house, not wanting Lara to witness a conflict between her parents. However, Lara clearly had no intention of staying quiet.
"I think I have a right to speak up too."
She was adamant. Reluctantly, I accepted Lara's anger and decided to face the situation together. We were greeted by John, who already knew our plan, and upon entering the living room, we saw Bruno, seemingly just woken up, lounging in his pajamas and watching TV, despite it being midday.
"Oh, I thought you were on a business trip."
Surprised by my sudden voice, Bruno sprang up.
Well, I was supposed to go, but then it got cancelled unexpectedly."
Bruno began to stammer out a lame excuse.
"But never mind that.
What about Lara's injury?"
"I want to hear about it."
"Oh, the clumsy girl. She apparently fell down the stairs and hit her forehead." I almost yelled at Bruno for his blatant evasion, but John beat me to it.
"Enough. I know that Lara's injury is your fault,"
Lara added.
"Yes. That's right."
And I glared at Bruno. Realizing he was in a tough spot, Bruno suddenly looked smug and retorted.
"You never showed your face at my parents' place, and now you act all high and mighty. I've been the one doing the filial duties for both of us."
Bruno sneered, thinking I had no comeback. Indeed, until now. I had thought he was right and had kept quiet. But after hearing Lara's story, I knew all too well that Bruno's words were full of lies.
"Oh really? Is leaving your father alone at home and making Lara do all the housework your idea of filial piety?" "That's right. Since you brought me here, you've just been relaxing at home." "Shut up. This was just a one-time thing. Usually, it's me who does all the hard work."
As Bruno arrogantly boasted, I took out John's household ledger, which I had been given beforehand. It detailed not only the financial transactions, but also how Bruno spent his time at his parents' house. Let me read some of it to you. June 10th, gave Bruno $200 for transportation. He lounged around all day and went out at night as usual, returning in the morning. Food expenses increased due to Bruno's stay. I calmly read out the entries. According to the ledger, every time Bruno visited,
My wife won't even give me money for the trip.
he lied, claiming that he receives money from John. Taking advantage of my absence, Bruno portrayed me as a stingy and scary wife to gain sympathy from his father.
A grown man, still leeching off his parents, aren't you ashamed? And they even take care of various things for you. You always come over and I feel bad, thinking you're not getting any pocket money from your wife, so I try to help out. But it was all lies, wasn't it?
Bruno, cornered by our accusations, fell silent and didn't respond.
Swindling money from your father, what exactly did you use it for?
That's, well,
No need to say anything. You're probably just thinking up more lies.
Ignoring Bruno's muttering, I thrust a certain photograph in front of him.
You wanted money so badly because you were splurging at places like this. How do you know about this place?
The photo showed Bruno entering a dubious nightclub. Bruno's face drained of color, clearly not expecting me to know this much. Indeed, the secret Lara had discovered during the visit was about this very matter. Lara had thought Bruno was diligently taking care of John, but when she noticed his repeated late-night returns, she became suspicious and started her own investigation. She secretly installed a location tracking app on Bruno's mobile phone and, after he left, used her computer to check his whereabouts, always showing the same place. When Lara researched it on the internet, she discovered it was a night spot catering to men. While she was about to call and inform me, Bruno returned home. He became furious upon finding Lara checking his location and the club on her computer and pushed her, causing her to hit her head on the edge of a shelf and bleed. You know the rest. After hearing Lara's story, I left my mother in professional care for a few days and staked out the club to gather evidence of Bruno's escapades, capturing photos of him entering the establishment. When I saw Bruno enter the club so lightheartedly, the shock I felt was indescribable. And to think, the money for this recent trip home, though temporarily, was taken from Lara's college fund.
Dad, you're the worst.
Feeling awkward with the undeniable evidence of the photos, Bruno muttered, "Isn't this normal for men?" and looked up at John, seeking agreement.
What are you talking about? Dipping into your child's college fund for nightlife is despicable. I'm tired from work. A little fun should be okay.
Lara sighed in disbelief at Bruno's brazenness. Mom, do you know what kind of place that is? Eh? No, I just took the photos and left immediately. I thought so. Here, take a look. Lara said and spread out several printouts of the club's website on the table. John and I leaned over to see the girls in the club dressed in school uniforms. All appeared to be adults, but it was clear the establishment specialized in this kind of cosplay service. Oh. To expose our daughter to such a world. I was filled with remorse, but Lara seemed unfazed.
So Dad likes this kind of stuff.
Gross. She shuddered as if chilled while thrusting the papers at Bruno. You don't have to go that far.
Having a fetish for uniforms could be a big problem if your school clients find out, right? I doubt your company, which sells educational materials to schools, would continue employing someone with such hobbies.
As I gave him a cold gaze, Bruno turned pale.
Oh, right.
I quickly pulled out Bruno's schedule book, which I had found left in his business bag.
Looking at this, I now know all the schools you've been visiting. Maybe I should contact these clients about your wonderful hobby. Please, not that. I'm sorry. I went too far. I'll change, I promise.
Bruno must have realized there was no escaping the situation. He started to tremble and collapsed onto the floor. Despite his apologies, years of his club visits and extravagance, culminating in injuring Lara, were unforgivable.
Who's going to believe the words of a liar like you? I've already consulted a lawyer and am ready for divorce. You'll pay back every penny you squandered, plus compensation. This is the end for us. No, please.
Bruno tried to cling to Lara, but she recoiled.
Yuck. Get away from me.
And eventually, wah. He broke down crying. We watched his pathetic state with cold indifference. Shortly after, the divorce was finalized, and Bruno was ordered to pay back the $15,000 he had squandered plus $30,000 in damages. Somehow, his club visits were leaked, resulting in his termination from his job. John cut ties with him, and now Bruno lives alone in an old apartment, barely getting by with day jobs. Unable to pay the damages, he had to borrow money from dubious lenders and now lives in fear of debt collectors. Meanwhile, after the divorce, I had more time to myself. With Lara's help, my mother's health improved significantly, and she no longer needed constant care. Now, the three of us women live together, enjoying a happy and harmonious life.
I washed your baby in the washing machine.
My assail burst into laughter the moment she saw my face. She had always disliked me, so she must have been waiting for this opportunity. But I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in response.
My daughter is sleeping right next to me.
My assail Janice looked utterly shocked at first, then turned pale as she watched our daughter Kyrie sleeping soundly. This story is about a major family incident involving all our relatives, which happened one Christmas. My name is Patrice, a 35-year-old homemaker. I married Bryant, who is 5 years younger, and after about 7 years, we were finally blessed with a child when I turned 35. Our daughter Kyrie, now 8 months old, is a lively baby who loves her milk and sleeps well. As an older mother, I was relieved, but there were still challenges to face. One of them was my Sael, Janice, who is 10 years younger than me. She disliked me for marrying her brother and constantly harassed me whenever she got the chance. Janice's attachment and love for her brother Bryant were intense, something you might call a brother complex. I don't have siblings, so I can't fully understand, but I find it bizarre that at 25, she still wants to shower with her biological brother. Bryant always brushed it off as a joke, but I couldn't make sense of it. She looked down on me for being an older wife and for having a child late in life. When Bryant wasn't around, she would invariably taunt me, saying,
"How did an old lady like you manage to trick my brother?"
"I'm just curious, for future reference." "Janice, I don't think that's an appropriate way to speak, but..."
"Shut up. You're getting too cocky just because you're acting submissive. It's disgusting that an old lady like you stole my brother and then got pregnant."
"Could you please keep it down? The baby might wake up."
I held back a sigh and deliberately spoke to Janice in polite, respectful language. After all, she was constantly at our house, clinging to Bryant and trying to follow him every time he left his seat, which also troubled him. Moreover, she would ring the doorbell early in the morning and not leave until late at night. Eventually, she started acting childishly, saying,
"I'm going to stay over at my brother's place."
Bryant had his hands full just trying to send her home.
Good grief, Janice is such a handful.
"Honey, I have something I want to ask you about her."
I cautiously asked Bryant if he was aware of Janice's terrible behavior. His response was,
"I had no idea, this is news to me."
Bryant was surprised by what I told him. It all made sense now. Janice had been pretending to be nice in front of her brother and waited for him to leave to insult me. Remembering how Janice used to cling to Bryant, acting as if she were his real girlfriend, made me feel sick to my stomach. Bryant found it hard to believe, but I told him the facts as they were. Even after that, Janice continued her usual behavior.
"Let's go take a shower together, big brother,"
trying to drag him into the bathroom. But after hearing my story, Bryant began to reject her advances.
"Look, Janice, we're adults now. Taking a shower together isn't appropriate." "I know it's weird."
Janice didn't miss my muttered comment. Right after watching Bryant head for the shower, she turned to me and suddenly punched me in the stomach.
Oof!
I couldn't contain the pain and crouched down on the floor.
"It's your fault. You must have put some ideas into my brother's head."
Then she relentlessly kicked my back as I was clutching my stomach.
Get lost already!
As the time approached for Bryant to usually come out of the shower, Janice forcibly made me stand up and pushed me onto the sofa.
Listen, if you tell my brother about this, I'll make you suffer even more.
Groaning in pain, I was completely overwhelmed by Janice's violent behavior. What's worse, her anger, initially directed at me, gradually shifted to someone else. It happened one day when Bryant was about to take Kyrie into the shower.
I'll help you, big brother. Maybe I'll take a shower too.
Janice was fully intent on joining them, heading towards the bathroom. Knowing I had to stop this, I opened my mouth, but Bryant looked fed up.
Janice, I've told you before, I'm not showering with you. I have a wife and a daughter, so it's time for you to move on from me.
No, no. Why are you being so mean?
Ignoring her tantrum, Bryant quickly picked up Kyrie and headed for the shower. This scene repeated several times, with Janice being rejected by him each time, gradually shifting her anger from me to Kyrie. She couldn't stand the thought of the baby showering with Bryant, her brother, while she was rejected. That's probably what she felt. Soon, Janice would cause a terrible incident. One Christmas, our family was invited to my in-laws, where we gathered with relatives. Naturally, Janice was there too, and I had a bad feeling about it. However, in front of the relatives, Janice's true colors were never revealed, and surprisingly, she was quite well behaved. Despite her usual disdain for me, she approached me with a smile and acted friendly.
But honestly, it's kind of creepy. There's no way she would suddenly be nice to me.
I decided to avoid Janice as much as possible and went to where the children of our relatives were gathered. There, over 10 children and babies were huddled together, holding on to their allowances and toys given by the relatives. I approached a relative, Opal, who was there. Opal, thanks again for the baby clothes. How about we take a picture of our 2 kids? She had given me matching baby clothes for my daughter and hers as a birth gift, so I had dressed Kyrie in them for the visit. We both had a great time taking photos of the children with our mobile phones. Eventually, the kids decided to play in the snow-covered garden. They were quickly covered in snow. And even a nearby baby got splashed with it. That's when Janice was asked by a relative to help wash the children in the shower. She grimaced for a moment, but then, surprisingly,
All right. Come on, everyone, follow me.
She picked up a baby with a smile and led the children away. However, with over 10 kids, they formed a long line following Janice.
Oh no, Kyrie got left behind.
Janice seemed not to notice, and Kyrie was sitting there with snow on her clothes. I was about to take Kyrie to the shower, but she started crying, probably wanting milk. Oh, there. Maybe I should give her milk first. I wanted to wash the gifted baby clothes right away, but after feeding her, Kyrie fell asleep, making it difficult to undress her. Reluctantly, I let it go, laid Kyrie beside me, and enjoyed chatting with the relatives. Then, Janice appeared with a triumphant look on her face.
Ahaha. I washed your baby in the washing machine. That'll show you.
Excuse me. I couldn't understand what she was talking about. What did she mean by washing a child in a washing machine?
Kyrie is sleeping right next to me.
What? Janice looked confused as well, seeing Kyrie sleeping soundly. We were both unclear about what was happening. Suddenly, a scream came from the bathroom. Janice and I rushed there, and we found Opal in a complete panic.
Opal, calm down. What happened?
Opal claimed that when she opened the washing machine, she found a baby inside. And that baby was her daughter. Her voice, crying and holding her child, attracted more and more relatives. Seizing the moment, Janice pointed at me.
Patrice! How could you?
What are you talking about?
As soon as Janice shouted, all eyes turned to me, and I was taken aback. Then, the relatives started to confront me.
Patrice, we need to hear your side of the story.
Taking advantage of this distraction, I saw Janice sneaking out of the house.
Wait! Janice!
In this desperate moment, Bryant's sharp voice rang out.
This is not the time for accusations. We need to get to the hospital right away.
Bryant immediately called the paramedics, and Opal and her husband, with the baby, boarded the ambulance and headed to the hospital. Left at the in-laws' house, surrounded by relatives, I seethed with anger at Janice for trying to pin this on me even in such a situation. I'll make sure she pays for this. She better be ready. I decided to explain all of Janice's misdeeds to the relatives and asked for their cooperation in punishing her. After returning from the hospital, Opal and her husband, furious after hearing everything, agreed to participate in the plan. I asked Bryant to lure Janice back to the in-laws' house with a phone call.
Janice, Patrice admitted her guilt. I can't believe she would do something so horrible.
Eh? Oh, really?
So, I want to hear more about it. You ran away because you feared Patrice's grudge, right? I'll protect you, so please come back and help us uncover the truth.
Comforted by her brother's kind words, Janice naively returned to the in-laws' house. However, the house was in a state of mourning. Opal, in tears, "My daughter has passed away," she announced to the remaining relatives. While everyone was engulfed in sorrow, Janice was the only one looking smug. "Ah, it's all Patrice's fault. What are you going to do about this? How will you make amends?" Joining in Janice's sneering attitude. "How could you do something like this, Patrice?"
What grudge did you have against Opal?
The other relatives started accusing me. "I'm so sorry. I had to."
Janice was after Bryant, so I thought of framing her for the incident with the children in the shower.
As I began to break down in tears, Janice started to panic. What? Me, after my brother? How could you make up such a lie? Is there any proof? So, I said, "Actually," and showed Janice and the relatives the screen of my mobile phone. It was a recording of our home's laundry room, focusing on the washing machine. Janice could be seen taking Bryant's underwear from the laundry, sniffing it, and then hiding it in her pocket. She had been stealing her own brother's underwear every time she visited our house.
Janice, what are you doing? I thought it was strange that I've been losing underwear recently.
Wait! This recording has nothing to do with what happened. I was forced by Patrice to put the child in the washing machine against my will.
Oh, so you admit to doing it yourself?
But you forced me to.
I immediately played another recording from my phone. It was Janice's voice saying,
"I washed your baby in the laundry."
Her face turned pale as she listened.
Janice kept coming to our house every day, hitting and kicking me, so I've been collecting evidence all along.
I had suspected something fishy about Janice's unusually cheerful demeanor that day, so I kept the recording function on my mobile phone active. Janice fell to her knees and after a moment, looked up and clung to me.
"Please, don't tell the police. I don't want to get arrested for this."
That's too easy for you. You put an innocent child through this. And you almost did a terrible thing by mistaking my daughter for Opal's child and putting her in the washing machine.
What do you mean? Opal's daughter is dead, isn't she? The story about the baby dying after being put in the washing machine was a lie to deceive Janice. Opal had set up the washing machine and left for a moment. Janice then put the baby inside and closed the lid. But she didn't know how to use the washing machine and left, thinking it had started. Opal returned, switched it on, and then realized there was a child inside. There was no danger to the baby's life, but Opal was still furious at Janice.
Even my relatives accusing me was all an act to catch you off guard. You're no longer welcome in this family.
But how can this be?
Janice collapsed to the floor. Afterward, Janice was arrested by the police called by the relatives. She was rejected by her beloved brother.
Never contact me again.
And cut off by all the relatives. Even if she gets out of jail, there's no one left to help her. Meanwhile, Opal's child who was put in the washing machine has fully recovered. My daughter is growing up healthy, playing with the other children like sisters, as Bryant and I watch them fondly every day.
Once I nearly died, and now that I've managed to recover, I feel reborn. I'm starting a new life, and I don't want to take care of some old hag.
He said coldly, despite Victor's recovery from his illness being a direct result of me becoming a donor. Looking back, I had never received a single word of gratitude from Victor. In the divorce papers mercilessly handed to me, Victor's signature was already there. Yet, I wasn't shocked, just irritated and anxious. Since he regained his mobility, Victor had been gallivanting around, and I had been harboring suspicions for some time. And now, I had fallen ill. I had stomach cancer. It was progressing slowly, so it was not critical, but I still had to start treatment with surgery and chemotherapy. Full of anxiety, I never imagined being pushed away like this. All my love and trust for Victor vanished in an instant. The hard part is, to Layla, he's undeniably her only dad. I felt guilty about becoming a single parent, but I just didn't have the energy to try and mend things with Victor now that my own battle with illness is beginning. I signed the divorce papers Victor brought and returned them to him. A month later, Victor, having left numerous unanswered calls, finally barged into my hospital room and blurted out something shocking. My name is Karina, a 29-year-old housewife. I had been happily living with Victor, a year my senior, and our 5-year-old daughter Layla for 7 years. Even after getting married, I continued working full-time until I went on maternity leave and then resigned from my job. I wanted to take my time raising Layla, but with the recession and Victor's salary alone not being enough, I had to return to work as soon as Layla could go to daycare. I got a job at an apparel company run by Victor's sister-in-law, Madison. They were looking for an office worker, and my previous experience made me a quick hire. Despite being family, I wasn't coddled, and the workplace was great with many colleagues who also had kids, making it easy to discuss childcare and take leave for emergencies. However, juggling work, household chores, and parenting was incredibly challenging. In the mornings, I prepared breakfast for Victor and Layla, made lunch for Victor, sent him off, dropped Layla at daycare, then headed to work. After work, I picked up Layla, shopped, cleaned, bathed Layla, and prepared dinner. Victor returned home just as Layla finished eating, and I prepared his meal while putting Layla to bed. Despite the hectic days, Victor wasn't very cooperative with housework or childcare. Even when Layla had a fever and I was busy caring for her, he'd casually ask, "Where's my breakfast?" If I asked him to shop for dinner because I had to work late, he'd complain, "I'm tired from work." Exhausted myself, I didn't have the energy to argue and ended up handling everything alone. Everything changed abruptly. Victor failed some tests at a company health check and was strongly advised to undergo further tests. He didn't want to since he felt fine, but started noticing odd symptoms like unexplained bruises and bleeding gums when brushing teeth. Ignoring it could lead to something serious. Considering Layla's future, I insisted on a thorough examination for Victor, which revealed he had leukemia.
Why me?
Victor was shocked, hearing the familiar name of the disease. But leukemia isn't incurable anymore. There are many cases of remission through chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants, and many patients return to normal life. I decided to support Victor, who was on the verge of despair, and accompany him through his treatment. He took a leave from work and was admitted to the hospital immediately. As for me, I had to juggle work, household chores, childcare, and now Victor's treatment. It was me who reached the limit first. The stress of hospitalization made Victor even more irritable towards me. I knew it was just him lashing out, but being busy with work, looking after Layla, doing household chores, and visiting the hospital in my spare time, I was honestly exhausted. It was then Madison, my sister-in-law, reached out to me. "Why don't you live with me? I can help with the household and taking care of Layla." Madison, the president of our company, was always on the front line of sales. She never left everything to her subordinates and always tried to catch the voices from the field. That's why her staff felt close to her and found it easy to exchange opinions. Knowing how busy she was, I felt guilty.
But Madison, you're busy too.
If you collapse now, the one who suffers the most will be Layla, right? I'll help as much as I can with Victor's support. Rely on others when you can. Madison's firm words made me break down in tears. I was anxious about Victor, Layla's future, and my health, and Madison's presence and words were a great relief. Victor's parents had already passed away, and Madison lived alone in her parents' house. It's too big for one person. I didn't want to sell it because of the memories with my parents, but I'm glad you two are here. Madison warmly welcomed me and Layla. Living with her was very comfortable. Our good relationship made it feel like I got a sister. Madison, who had been living alone for a long time, was good at household chores. Her active help made life easier than before. Then, there was a hope in Victor's treatment. I was a match as a bone marrow donor for him. After Victor's diagnosis, both Madison and I tested for bone marrow donation. The odds of finding a match are 1 in 4 for siblings, and 1 in several hundred to several thousand for unrelated individuals. We despaired when Madison wasn't a match, but I was, and Victor was overjoyed. I had to be hospitalized for a few days for the bone marrow extraction. During that time, of course, I had to take time off from work, and I couldn't take care of Layla. Both of these troubled Madison, but she didn't show any disgust.
I'm really grateful you're doing this for my brother. I'll take care of everything, so don't worry about anything but your own health,
she said. With Madison's support, I underwent the surgery to donate bone marrow to Victor. He had to stay in a sterile room for a while post-surgery to avoid infections. I was discharged after a few days and, thanks to Madison's generosity, took a couple more days off before returning to work. The hematopoietic stem cells transplanted into Victor began to work properly, and after a few weeks, he was able to move to the general ward. When I took Layla to visit Victor in the general ward, a nurse was in the room. Seeing Layla after a long time, Victor smiled happily. Victor is recovering well. He's young and strong, so he should be able to return to society soon if he continues to progress well.
Thank you so much for everything.
After expressing our gratitude, the nurse smiled and left the room. True to her words, Victor's condition stabilized, and a few months later, he was discharged. He still needed to rest at home for a while, so the 4 of us, including Madison, began living together at the in-laws' house. I once again took on the responsibilities of work, house chores, childcare, and caring for Victor, but it was less burdensome than before, thanks to Madison's presence. Madison, who can speak her mind clearly to Victor, told him,
"You don't have to overdo it, but try doing some household chores as a part of your rehabilitation."
Reluctantly, Victor began to help around the house. However, knowing his physical condition, I often ended up helping him, and eventually, Victor seemed to understand that if he did things slowly, I would come to help him, and he stopped doing even what he could.
"I still feel tired."
He said it as an excuse, not even trying to get up from the sofa. Once, when a delivery arrived while I was preparing dinner and I couldn't answer the door, I asked him to do it, only to receive a heavy sigh and a complaint.
"You're rough with people, even though I'm supposed to be resting."
I couldn't help but think,
"It's just this much."
But Victor's pain was something only he could understand. So, believing his words, I tried to do as much as I could, even if it meant pushing myself. Perhaps because of overexerting myself again, my health had been deteriorating recently. Eating had become more difficult, and Madison even worried that I might have lost weight. By this time, Victor had recovered almost completely and had returned to work. Even though Victor no longer needed care, it didn't mean that household chores and childcare decreased. Even as my health worsened, Victor, perhaps reacting to having been told to rest, began going out alone more on his days off. He seemed not to notice my poor health and continued to neglect household chores. Once, when I asked where he was going and with whom, he became angry, saying, "I have my own private life too." Eventually, due to stress, I started experiencing painful stomach cramps and, encouraged by Madison, decided to undergo a medical checkup. With Victor having been seriously ill, I thought it was best to take early action for Layla's sake. The result was that I was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Fortunately, it seemed to be progressing slowly, but I still needed to be hospitalized for a while and undergo harsh chemotherapy. Layla looked anxious about my sudden hospitalization, but Victor was out and didn't stay by her side. Instead, Madison was with her. To not get in the way of my preparation for hospitalization, Madison took Layla out shopping. While I was silently getting ready, Victor came back. "What's this? Going on a trip?" Victor asked nonchalantly. I snapped back, unable to contain my anger. "I have stomach cancer." "Stomach cancer? I've been feeling sick lately." "I went for a checkup today, and that was the diagnosis. I need to be hospitalized." "Hospitalized? What about the housework? Will Madison handle it?" I was stunned that his first reaction to hearing about my hospitalization was not a concern for me. Indeed, the slow progression of my illness meant it wasn't a matter of immediate life or death. But still, facing a wife who was about to undergo harsh chemotherapy, his first concern was about the housework, which seemed incredibly insensitive. "Well, maybe this is for the best." "What? Divorce me?" "Huh." His sudden demand left me bewildered. After all the dedication I gave him during his illness, he drastically changed his attitude the moment I fell ill. I was reborn after nearly dying and recovering. I don't want to spend my life taking care of an old hag. Victor's recovery was thanks to me being a donor. Yet I realized now he had never shown any gratitude. He callously presented me with divorce papers, already signed by him. "You don't even bother to put on makeup at home, you're no longer a woman to me." "But I've been so busy with work, house chores, and childcare, I haven't had time for makeup." "That's just an excuse." "And now cancer? I can't deal with all this." "Quickly write your name here," Victor yelled, and I was upset that he even said that to me. He shouted at me to sign the papers quickly. Despite the anxiety of my cancer diagnosis, I wasn't shocked. Ever since Victor regained his mobility, he had been out and about, and my mistrust had been growing. The fact that I was now sick meant all my love and trust for Victor had vanished. The hardest part was that Victor was undeniably Layla's only dad. I felt guilty about becoming a single parent, but with my upcoming battle with illness, I had no energy left to mend things with Victor. I signed the divorce papers he brought and returned them to him. "We're nothing more than strangers now," Victor said, smiling satisfactorily as he saw my signature. "Hey, are you done? Don't just barge in here. Because you're taking too long." Suddenly, a young woman I didn't know appeared at the entrance. She was dressed in a flashy one-piece dress and wore heavy makeup, looking beautiful. But upon closer inspection, I recognized her. "Are you the nurse from Victor's hospital stay?" She was Victor's attending nurse, although unrecognizable in her casual clothes. Apparently, she was his mistress. "Yeah. She supported me devotedly when I was sick, unlike you," Victor boasted proudly. Supporting a patient is a nurse's job. And it was absurd to compare her to me. "Just get out of this house. It's my family home, after all." He was brazen now. Though it was Victor's family home, it was under Madison's name now. But with the divorce, Madison and I were no longer related. The thought of leaving Madison, who Layla adored and who had been so kind and reliable, saddened me more than leaving Victor. But there was no choice. I packed my few belongings into a suitcase, getting ready for the hospital stay. I had no love left for Victor and wanted to leave as soon as possible. As I silently continued my preparations, Madison and Layla, who had been out shopping, returned. "We're home." "Oh, who's this?" Madison, surprised to see the unfamiliar woman, and Layla, clinging to her and looking around, didn't seem to understand the situation. So I said it clearly. "Victor and I are getting divorced." "Huh?" Madison looked as shocked as I felt. Then, to Layla, she said, "Have this snack on the way." handing her a snack she apparently just bought, and sent her to the next room. With only adults left, Madison immediately glared at Victor.
What are you thinking?
Confronted by Madison instead of me, Victor momentarily backed off.
He's divorcing me to start a new life with that woman. Since we'll be strangers, he wants me to leave.
Hearing my words, Madison's eyes widened in disbelief.
At a time like this, how can you be so selfish? You're the one who should leave. Don't ever show your face to me again,
Madison said firmly, and Victor left the house with a click of his tongue. The woman glanced down at me with a triumphant smile and followed Victor. Karina. I'm so sorry. Once they were gone, Madison looked at me with a face full of regret. It wasn't her fault, yet I felt guilty for making her feel this way.
Please don't look like that. You've done so much for me, and I can't thank you enough.
I felt somewhat relieved that Madison had decisively cut ties with Victor.
Even if you divorce Victor, I'm still on your side, Karina.
The house Victor lived in before falling ill was already vacated. Now kicked out by Madison, Victor probably had nowhere to live but was likely planning to move in with that woman. Although he had an insurance and subsidies, he wouldn't have much savings left after his illness. Well, he's a stranger to me now, anyway. Victor apparently filed the divorce papers immediately. We were no longer a couple, but Madison still supported me. I was about to be hospitalized and thought about sending Layla to my parents, but Madison offered to take care of her.
She's already anxious without her mom. A change of environment would only make it worse.
Since her work was stable at the moment, Madison insisted on helping me, so I gratefully accepted. When I was about a month into my hospital stay, my mobile phone rang. It was Victor, and of course, I ignored the call. Despite my ignoring, he kept calling repeatedly. When Madison visited me, I told her about it. She said Victor had also called her and even had come to the in-laws' house when ignored. She told him it was impossible to meet me since I was in the hospital.
Even if Victor says anything, ignore him. It's too late for him to realize your worth.
Madison's words made me feel supported. After saying goodbye to Madison, Victor appeared in my hospital room. How did you find me here? I hadn't told Victor which hospital I was in. After all, he never asked.
I went to the family home today. I saw Madison leaving with flowers, so I thought she might be visiting you.
He apparently followed Madison here. Victor's desperation was frightening, and as I wondered what his motive was, he clung to me.
My illness has relapsed.
It turns out, Victor's leukemia had relapsed. While a bone marrow transplant could lead to remission, it wasn't without the risk of relapse.
So, become my donor again.
His convenient request left me dumbfounded. Here I was, battling cancer, and my ex-husband, who abandoned me when I fell ill, returned as soon as his illness recurred. It was just too convenient.
I don't know, maybe it's karma? That's cruel.
And don't you have someone more dedicated to support you? Saying this, Victor looked frustrated. Apparently, the moment she learned of his relapse, his mistress had promptly broken up with him. She reportedly said she didn't want to deal with a sick person in her personal life.
I have no one but you to rely on now,
Victor pleaded, but I was resolute in my response. Absolutely not.
You're going to abandon me in my illness.
You abandoned me first, remember? Victor fell silent at my words. Besides, I'm currently consulting a lawyer about you.
A lawyer?
Yes, for the infidelity compensation and Layla's child support. I'm making sure you pay both in full.
But I'm sick.
So am I. As our unproductive argument continued, a doctor, alerted by the commotion, came into the room. He restrained Victor, who was trying to grab me, and took him away. Victor was later handed over to the police. After being interrogated, a restraining order was issued against him from approaching me. Hearing the noise, Madison returned to the room. She seemed thoroughly disgusted by Victor's selfish behavior. I asked Madison to testify, and after consulting with the lawyer, I decided to sue Victor and his mistress for compensation. While Victor was reluctant, his mistress readily agreed to pay as a settlement. Since then, I had been slowly recovering. Madison had been devotedly supporting me, and Layla, though young, had been helping me without any complaints. The cancer was successfully removed without any signs of spreading elsewhere. Meanwhile, Victor still hadn't found a donor and was living in fear every day. He managed to pay my compensation by depleting his savings but seemed unable to afford Layla's child support. Since he couldn't pay it, he was also not allowed to visit her, leading him to battle his illness alone. Madison and I continued to have a good relationship. When I considered moving out with Layla after my recovery, thinking not to impose further on Madison, she scolded me, telling me not to worry about unnecessary things while recovering. She insisted I use her money freely until I saved enough, so we continued living together for a while. Since Layla had grown very fond of Madison, even after saving enough money, we decided to rent a condo nearby. We visited each other's homes and had become like best friends. Despite the terrible separation from Victor and my own illness, having someone like Madison who steadfastly supported me was a blessing. I hoped Layla grows up to be a strong, kind woman with a sense of justice like Madison, and I looked forward to spending more time together. On the day of the wedding, I got a call. It was Linda, my mother-in-law-to-be, sounding triumphant.
Embarrassing, isn't it? No one sitting in the groom's family seats. You must regret ignoring me now, huh?
However, her smugness lasted only 20 seconds. I'm Patricia and a 28-year-old office worker. I was born and raised on a wheat farm, brought up on bread. I was an athlete until college, which was fine, but now in my desk job, apparently, I'm eating too many calories from all that bread. Before I knew it, my belly was firmly resting over my pants, and I was shocked when I noticed. This is bad. I decided to start going to the gym after work. That's where I met William, my soon-to-be husband. William was born and raised in Urban, working for a famous company. We often ended up next to each other on the treadmills and became close. 2 years of dating without major fights, and I accepted his proposal without hesitation. I thought we'd be a peaceful married couple. But there was one person who reacted negatively to our marriage. That was his mother, Linda.
What? From a farming family?
When I went to greet the in-laws' house after William's proposal, Linda clearly showed her displeasure. Nice. I love bread. One day, I want to own a field and grow delicious wheat. That's my dream. Unlike her, William's father Anthony was all smiles, sharing his wonderful dream. Dad's born and raised in Boston, so he's got a strong yearning for the countryside.
I see. By the way, what's your favorite type of bread, Anthony?
Let's see, can I start with the top 10?
Please, go ahead. Come on, it'll be tomorrow before you know it.
William was smiling wryly, but Anthony looked happy. When asked about his number 1, it was cinnamon rolls. I thought I could get along with Anthony. Linda, isn't it great William found such a wonderful wife? Yes, I suppose. Linda looked me up and down.
But I wonder if a girl raised in the peaceful countryside, from a farming family, can fit in with us city folk.
I'm worried. Sorry? I was shocked by her sudden rude remark. She continued to look down on me. Listen.
Patricia, you're from the countryside, so you might not know, but you should make an appointment when meeting people. Don't just barge in with muddy corn.
It's embarrassing.
Mom!
William looked at her in shock. Anthony was so surprised he froze with his cup in hand. But she didn't stop.
Children's education starts before preschool. If they're raised like you were, they'll stick out in the city. Don't embarrass William and us. Hey, what are you saying?
Anthony, snapping back to reality, hurried to scold Linda. But she just smiled sweetly.
I'm just worried as a woman. Can this simple, laid-back girl fit into our family, living in Boston for generations? Wouldn't she be happier returning to the countryside, finding a man more suited to her?
Yeah, perhaps. I'd never met someone who could insult a person so elegantly with a smile on their face. Not in the countryside, and I doubt even in the city. William seemed disgusted by his mother's words too.
Mom, you're being incredibly rude to Patricia and her parents. We're just a family born and raised in Boston, nothing special. Also, she's been living in here for 10 years, working hard in an office, so there's nothing to worry about.
We'll see about that. Despite him trying to calm her down gently, Linda just scoffed. When a vein popped on his temple, Anthony clapped his hands loudly.
That's enough. I'm sorry, Patricia. Linda's just a worrywart, she doesn't mean any harm. So if you ever have any trouble, always rely on us. We're here to support you as parents.
Yes. Anthony's words were comforting. Next to him, Linda was glaring at me with obvious malice though. Worried about the upcoming married life, I hastily swallowed the sigh that almost escaped. I then reported to my parents and started preparing for the wedding. Having many friends who married earlier, I had some ideals like, that ceremony was lovely, or I'd like to try such a performance. However, there were always obstructions. Yes, that was Linda. First, she insisted on coming to see me try on wedding dresses. William tried to refuse, but she ambushed us at the meeting spot and forcefully joined. Every time I tried on a dress, she'd say,
"Your bread-like face doesn't suit the dress."
"What kind of face is that?" Then she'd say,
"This dress would look better on me, let me try it on."
Seriously troubling the coordinators with her absurd comments. At my limit, William had to forcibly remove her from the store, and the day ended with apologies instead of dress fittings. I was utterly down, but I felt sorrier for William, with such an unreasonable mother. Linda didn't just interfere with the wedding dress. She tried to cancel the video filming, saying it was unnecessary for a country girl, and unilaterally inserted her hula dance circle's performance into the program. She even called the venue to change the wedding favors, claiming it was the norm in city weddings to give an unmanageable amount. I was at my breaking point. The wedding preparations I was looking forward to had become nothing but a burden. Causing trouble for the venue, William was also irritated every day. At that rate, we'd both break down. I didn't want to break up with him over it, nor did I want to let Linda have her way. So, I made up my mind to discuss it with William and decided to ignore all of Linda's snide remarks and meddling. Then suddenly, Linda's persistent attacks stopped. Perhaps she got bored because I remained expressionless no matter what she did. Just as I was feeling relieved yet a bit sorry for her, Anthony came to tell me something with a troubled look.
Linda is crying that she's being harassed by Patricia.
So that's her next move. Sighing, I explained the truth to him, with William equally dismayed. Hearing about Linda's antics, his face grew darker.
I'm so sorry. Linda actually proposed to skip the wedding day. I thought that was too much and came to secretly consult with you too.
What?
Not only had she filled Anthony with lies, but she'd also planned such an outrageous act.
She said the absence of the groom's parents would be a silent protest on behalf of a son brainwashed by his wife. She's even trying to persuade Margaret and Stephen to skip.
Margaret and Stephen too?
William was shocked. Margaret is William's older sister, and Stephen is his younger brother. She must have filled their ears with all sorts of bad things about me. My stomach churned. I understood she didn't like having a country girl as a wife. But didn't she realize how much shame and sorrow this would bring to William?
It's okay, she doesn't have to come.
With a face paler than blue, William murmured,
If she wants to skip, let her. Forcing her to attend won't do any good. What I need to protect is Patricia.
William. I felt like crying at his words. Seeing us like that, Anthony looked down.
I've been with Linda for so many years, I can't let go of my trust in her. But I truly want to support William and Patricia.
Anthony. How can Linda be such a twisted person when she's with these two wonderful people? Honestly, I want to follow William's suggestion and ban Linda. But that would leave a lingering unease in Anthony's heart. After much deliberation, we decided to carry out a plan. If it failed, then Linda was truly beyond redemption. One day of the end of November, it was the wedding day. In the backstage room for family greetings, Linda was nowhere to be seen. Looking at Anthony, he quietly shook his head. It seemed our plan didn't work. He looked sad, yet there was a sense of resolve in his expression. I feel relieved Linda didn't come, although I feel sorry for him. My father Robert led me down the aisle, walking stiffly like a robot. Friends smiling and blessing us. A typical, happy wedding scene. Nothing strange. Except for the absence of the groom's mother. The ceremony ended without Linda. Before the reception, I checked my mobile phone in the bridal room and saw a missed call. It was Linda. I invited a person waiting outside the room in, and quietly pressed the redial button. The call connected immediately, and an excited Linda started talking hurriedly.
Oh, Patricia. Aren't you in the middle of the ceremony? Surprising that a bride has the time to answer the phone.
Linda.
Right? You're surprised, aren't you? Confused? Embarrassed with no one sitting in the groom's family seats? Regretting ignoring me now, huh?
Well.
You thought I calmed down, so you're off the hook? Wrong. Neither Anthony, Margaret, Stephen, nor I acknowledge a country girl like you. Everyone hates becoming relatives with a plain girl like you. Serves you right.
She laughed triumphantly, thinking she'd won. What a foolish person. I turned to the person next to me. That's what she says, Anthony.
Hey! Are you listening? Hey!
She stopped talking.
Oh, what did I say?
Huh? Anthony? You said you weren't coming today, huh?
She was rattled by the unexpected presence of someone she'd thought wouldn't be there.
No parent would boycott their son's wedding. You're the only one that unreasonable.
What? What does that mean?
It's only you who's not here, Linda.
Huh? Why? You're kidding, right?
Patricia doesn't lie like you. Margaret and Stephen are here, wishing for William's happiness. I'm disappointed in you. We'll talk about the future later.
Wait. What's happening?
As she floundered, Anthony ended the call, rejecting her.
Patricia, I'm sorry for involving you in this farce even on your wedding day.
I gently stroked Anthony's arm, as if to comfort him. Our plan wasn't anything grand. Anthony wouldn't tell Linda that he knew the truth from us. Until the day before the wedding, he'd pretend to be on Linda's side, encouraging her to change her ways. If she repented by the wedding day, I'd pretend her actions never happened. If she didn't, Anthony would attend without her knowing. That was the whole plan. Until the wedding day, Anthony had hoped she would have a change of heart, but it seemed she'd just made up non-existent grievances and never truly changed. Disgusted by her ugliness, he finally gave up, realizing that involving her in the wedding would be unbelievable. Of course, Margaret and Stephen were fully aware of everything. The wedding, without Linda, ended without major issues in a warm atmosphere. As we were about to return to the dressing room after seeing off the guests with smiles, furious Linda stormed down the hallway with the red carpet.
Just a minute. Patricia.
Oh, look, Madam Boycott.
What?
You're the worst, Mom.
Startled by my preemptive strike and William's cold voice, Linda faltered for a moment. But she quickly recovered and clung to William's tuxedo.
No, William, I just wanted your happiness.
Enough, Linda.
Hearing her scream, Anthony appeared. Margaret and Stephen also peeked out from behind him.
Anthony! Why? Why are you on Patricia's side? Didn't I tell you what this woman did to me?
I checked everything with William and the others. Linda, you are the one in the wrong.
How come? This is terrible.
She collapsed to the floor, crying like a victim, as William looked down on her with disdain.
You brought this on yourself. Good for you, you got to boycott my wedding, just like you wanted.
No, it's not that.
Then what is it?
You know, I wanted to wake you up. Yes. Everyone must have thought it's strange for a groom's mother to be absent. They must have realized there's a problem with the wife.
Yeah, so I explained it to them.
Huh?
That the groom's mother boycotted the wedding because she disapproves of his foreign-born wife.
What?
Everyone felt disgusted and sympathetic towards Patricia.
What the hell?
But it was cool, you know, when he declared, "I will absolutely protect my wife."
Wait, just a minute. What do you mean? I'm like the villain here.
Watching a flustered Linda, William sighed in exasperation.
Anyone can see that you're the villain, right?
Me?
Yeah, you are.
Anthony nodded.
Anthony, why would you say that? It's because of this woman. She's deceived William and now Anthony, making me the outcast.
Still such foolishness.
Even the kind Anthony was dismayed by her terrible behavior. She still looked around for an ally. Spotting Margaret, her face brightened.
Margaret! You have children, you understand my feelings, right? You want your children to be happy, right? You should think so too?
Yes.
Right?
That's why I'll warn my children never to marry into a family with trash like you.
Huh?
She was shocked by Margaret's emotionless sarcasm. I'll make sure not to tell you when I get married. I don't want my wife running away. Stephen's tone was light, but his eyes clearly showed contempt.
What are you saying, Stephen? I am your mother, you know.
Yeah. I'm so disappointed. I always respected Mom, and now to find out she's such a terrible person. Exactly. Apologize to Patricia quickly. The relatives blamed on her.
Oh my goodness.
Finally, she seemed to realize she had no allies. Unable to find any words of retaliation, she looked around and stammers. Anthony reached out to take his pitiful wife home, but she flailed and protested.
No. I'm not the bad one.
Hey.
I'm not bad.
Hey, enough already.
Believe me.
Linda cried and screamed like a child. Thinking crying would get her forgiveness, she was really like a child. Of course, no one found it endearing or felt sympathy for a 57-year-old Linda behaving like that. Eventually, she was unceremoniously grabbed by the arms by Anthony and Stephen and dragged away. Is that city manners? It might be. I couldn't help but make a sarcastic comment, to which William responded with a dry laugh. After that, Anthony and Linda separated. Linda was reluctant, but her mother, who learned of her daughter's disgrace at the wedding, tearfully took her back. It was pitiable that Linda's nearly 80-year-old mother had to clean up after her big daughter. Surprisingly, her birthplace was even more remote than my family's home. Apparently, she moved to Boston as a child due to her parents' job transfer. Despite bragging about being from Boston for generations, she probably ran around in the nature until elementary school. Nevertheless, she had the nerve to look down on me as a country bumpkin. Until that incident, she was a good wife and mother, so Anthony gave her a grace period before considering divorce. But seeing Anthony's completely cooled gaze, it's unlikely they'll live together again. Linda, who's always been a housewife with no qualifications, will find it hard to rent a house and work in Boston. She'll probably end up living her remaining years in the countryside she so despised. Half a year later, in early summer.
Whoa! Are you okay?
Anthony spectacularly slipped in my family's wheat farm.
Are you all right? Dear, it's embarrassing being helped by a young person.
Embarrassed, he scratched his cheek with his muddy hand. Hearing his yell, my father and William came rushing over from the next field.
Oh my, you've been training hard.
Come on, Dad. I scolded my father's teasing, but Anthony just laughed it off.
I really need to work on my strength and balance.
City folks for you, Dad. At William's remarked, the four of us broke into laughter. After Memorial Day, bread-loving Anthony had offered to help with weeding. Though machines have reduced the need for manual labor, there are still places that need a human touch. Both Anthony and William handle the seedlings carefully and take on the heavy lifting, much to my parents' gratitude. We ate sandwiches made by my mother, overlooking the fields. The sound of the wind rustling the wheat was soothing.
Wow, such a nice view. I could eat 3 sandwiches just with this scenery. That's nothing, I could eat 10. Don't compete over something like that.
William and Anthony seemed to be enjoying themselves. Watching them, my parents looked happy too, and my heart warmed. Getting married, connecting families, sharing joy is wonderful. Linda was a regrettable person, but meeting William and becoming family with Anthony is something I'm truly grateful for. Sandwiches under the blue sky with my beloved family. Simple, yet more delicious than any dish I could ask for.